the email sign up is such a huge opportunity. That someone going, I'm going to test you out. I'm going to trust you with my email and see if you're worthy of me spending money with you.
Welcome to the Real eCommerce podcast, your go-to for straight talk and smart tips from the world of online retail.
So just as a forward, I really wanted to put out there the change that's up and coming with Google Privacy Sandbox. It's started to be rolled out as of January this year, and it was scheduled to be fully implemented by the third quarter of 2024. But thanks to Chloe's insights, I now know that that's been pushed back to 2025. The reason I'm bringing this to the forefront of the conversation, I know we're talking about crafting e-commerce emails, but one of the biggest shifts here, I think, is in retailers' focus on collecting first-party data. So third-party data that was collected by cookies is going to be less accessible, and there's going to be an increased emphasis on retailers having like a KYC, like a know your customer, to collect as much marketable data about them as they possibly can, because if you have this data, it's going to be almost equally important as a sale. So it may change your direction as to you actually want to collect data about your customer as much as you do as making a sale. Thanks for the insights on the 2025 bit. Have you seen a shift in how e-commerce retailers are moving towards this first party data?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's one of those things which I think the industry talks quite a lot about, but I'm not quite sure how many retailers are actually embracing it yet. I think the first bit that people seem to have got to, and this is not a Google thing, this is a Meta thing, is looking at the server-side tracking that you can put in place, which is essentially collecting your own first-party data and then passing that into Facebook, so as it works a bit differently. And I think it's one of those things. I'm really glad. I know I'm not entirely answering your question here, Adam, but I'm incredibly glad at the moment I'm not an e-commerce brand side marketer, because it's annoying. I know there's huge opportunities with it to do better marketing, but there's a whole pile of admin, which is just like, oh, I've got to do the admin stuff today. I'm not creating the clever marketing. I'm not pushing things forward. I'm just having to fix problems that are being created by macro political things that are going on way above our heads that we can't affect. I mean, overall, I think it's a good thing for the industry. I think it makes us better marketers, but I think this admin stage where you're trying to find the right tech, trying to find the right solution, trying to tie everything together, and in a lot of cases having to shift company culture as well, because if we're trying to pull all the data together, it means we've actually got to talk between teams to bring all that data together, which is a whole other nightmare. I think it's a really tough time to be dealing with it all, but I do think possibly contradicting myself, I think the opportunities are huge. If that's any
like
kind of answer.
Well, like we said just before the call, and you've just got over the GA4 switch as a marketer, and now potentially you've got a big change in how you collect other marketing data. So do you think then, you mentioning there's going to again be a blend of digital server-side data that we collect, but then also do you carry any weight on that know your customer, like being able to ask questions of your customers so you can segment and personalize their experience through email marketing better?
I mean, I think asking customers questions is always a good idea, because that's how you learn, that's how you create good marketing, it's how you work out how to talk best to your customers. So I think even without the privacy changes we're seeing, asking questions of your customer to collect that first party data is a bit of a no-brainer. But then with everything that's going on at the moment, all those big changes we've been talking about, it's ever more important. And I think what we have to be mindful of is the old marketing adage of what someone says they'll do is often very, very wildly different to what they actually do. Even if the survey is being taken by a computer, we as human beings like to come across as better people than we are. Like the doctor asks you how many pints do you drink a week, and you lie. How many do you smoke? No, I don't smoke. And even if we're asked that by a computer, for a random survey that's got nothing to do with the NHS, you still get people lying because they want to be seen good in the survey. So people always lie about behavioural stuff, so you've got to be careful with how you use it. Now, if you're saying to them, do you have a dog or a cat, it's highly likely they're telling you the truth. You know, what's your skin type, etc., etc. Those kind of things you can get pretty solid answers on. But a lot of the other stuff, the more emotional stuff, you're likely to get whatever today's result is, or something which is not necessarily accurate. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I think we have to proactively ask the customers for data to improve their experience, to improve our businesses. But at the same time, we also need to look at the behavioral data that we pick up in all those many myriad ways we pick it up, and combine the two. And that's where the great stuff starts happening.
Is that like do as I say, not as I do almost? So you're collecting actually what happens and not reacting on what they say they do and blending
no,
the two.
I think you have to test the hypotheses. You know, our customers say they buy us as gifts, or they say they do this, or they say they love that. Test it and see if that's actually how they then go on to behave. So
might it be better to like band questions in like, you know, give people ranges to choose from rather than being granular about it? Because then it becomes more of a, I fit in a bracket rather than I'm giving you an exact, you know, you said how many pints do you drink a week or whatever, rather than do you drink frequently, infrequently? Do you know what I mean? And band it in a group.
I think it all depends on what you're trying to identify and why you're capturing the data at the beginning of the process. So if you are a health professional trying to work out if this person's at risk of something or if they might be an alcoholic, then bands are probably just fine, and you're likely to get a slight, you know, I'm sure there's psychological ways you could structure the answers in order to get a more accurate question. If you are a company who sells a subscription beer services, then at that point, getting an accurate number to be able to, recommend the right subscription package would be more useful. And I would suggest if someone's on a beer selling website and they've clicked the button of customize your subscription box and they asked how many cans of beer do you want to drink a week, they're probably going to be quite accurate. So I think context and what you want to do with the data is everything, which kind of comes back, if we're talking privacy, to GDPR. And one of the fundamental principles of GDPR is only collect the data you need to collect and you're actually going to use. Sure. Which fits very nicely with consumers as well, because the other important thing to say around collecting data and asking it from consumers is consumers are very happy to give you data, but they expect you to use it to make their experience better. So if you collect loads of data and then you're not using any of it, you're likely to erode customer relationships. So it's a complex space, but if you come into it thinking, if we knew this about our customers, we could serve them better, then you're on the right track.
Great. And one of the other things that seems a bit, difficult to process at the moment is the like click-through tracking. So, you know, tracking a user's behavior after they've clicked an email into the website. Cookies used to look after all of that for us. Presumably, there's going to be a lot of changes in, you know, how that's collected and how that's processed, because you're almost putting an email campaign out, and without cookies, you're not going to know the effectiveness of that or the journey that customer went on through the website. Can you see sort of platforms changing how that potentially is tracked? Like you said, maybe something server side. If you're using Klaviyo or whatever, use Klaviyo, and then you have a Klaviyo app server side that collects the rest of the data.
I mean, this definitely falls into the parcel of pieces where I go, no one should be losing too much sleep over this, because the tech companies are going to solve the problem for you. You know, because it's in their interests fundamentally to find a way to solve the problems. So I don't think the great majority of e-commerce stores, apart from the very, very huge ones, should not be trying to find their own solution to this. They should be badgering their existing suppliers and going, you used to give us this data, we're not getting it anymore, how are you going to solve it? That's the sensible route to dealing with it. I think, and there are, one of the most exciting spaces in e-commerce tech at the moment is attribution, tracking, first-party cookie tech, all that kind of stuff. There are some super sexy solutions coming down the pipeline. All very new. A lot of them, well, actually not all very new. Some of them are very tried and tested. Some of them are very in beta at the moment. I think when we get to this, this kind of time next year, the options will be so much clearer for everybody, of which tech is it worth installing, what integrates with what. And I think that problem will come to be dealt with for us. And I was going to say something about how often, and I'm probably explaining something about myself here, how often marketers like to gather all the data in the world and then never actually use it or put it to any good use. And I think sometimes not many businesses are taking results, the bit you said about they clicked from the email and they did this through the website. Not many people are looking at that in a lot of depth to the point where they need it tied back to the individual consumer. So
Is
if
that
we
an
are,
interpretation issue? Like they're not able to interpret the data from different sources and put it together? Certainly in a SME environment, it does feel a bit like that you're using several different pieces of software, and actually analyzing that collectively to know your customer better is quite a difficult task.
I think it's less about interpretation and more about actually doing anything with it. It's like so many brands don't even have an abandoned cart sequence set up. So many don't even have a post email sign up welcome campaign that does more than go, here's your voucher code. So it's great, really interesting information, but is it the marketing that the automated marketing piece or the marketing piece that a brand should be doing next? Possibly not. If we did a list of all the stuff you could do, what is the stuff you could do? And although this really nitty-gritty stuff is really cool, it's not necessarily what that brand, if they don't have an abandoned basket campaign, they should be doing that before they start worrying
Get the
about
fundamentals right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's forever, it's forever a case of trying not to get to, and anyone who can see me doing this on the video, I am grinning because this is entirely me. I would love to go and chase all the little bits down, but it's not what I should be doing.
Well, you mentioned one which is a pet peeve for me, which is the welcome email. The other one, like after you've signed up for an account or purchased for the first time, the other one is the newsletter sign up. You know who you are out there. You've got a newsletter sign up email that goes out and just says, thanks for signing up for our newsletter. It's such a wasted opportunity to re-engage them into some content, some products, some, giving you more data about them as a customer, but you just send out that one line of text. The same's true of the welcome emails, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just for clarity for the audience, I call what happens after the email sign up the welcome sequence, which I know not everybody does, so it's worth me clarifying that. But yeah, what happens after the email sign up is such a huge opportunity. That someone going, I'm going to test you out. I'm going to trust you with my email and see if you're worthy of me spending money with you. And then if you treat that badly and you send them stupid stuff, they're not going to convert. But at the same time, if you send them, a brilliant sequence of emails that's around, this is who we are. Here's something else which might help you. Here's a blog about how to buy our product. Here's a blog about what our customers like the most. Here's our best-selling products. Here's a guide to our different categories and finishes. Or here's the team. You can send all that great content to persuade someone. Yeah, you are the company I want to trust. You are the company I want to buy from. It's a bit like if you imagine yourself in a little corner shop somewhere, which is selling your product, and someone comes through the door and they look a bit confused, and they say hi, how are you, and they start and engage a conversation. Oh yeah, I'm good. And you have a general conversation. Oh, so when did you start? I haven't noticed your shop before. Oh, we've been here for so long. And yeah, we do. Well, these ones are really cool. We've just got these in from a new maker, and they're blah blah blah. And this one helps deal with spotty skin, and this one helps deal with greasy hair, and whatever it might be. Think of that conversation you'd have with someone. It's like, that's what you should be putting into that sequence of emails that goes after the email sign up. And yeah, I totally agree with you. Absolutely wasted opportunity. Or when you just get the click here to confirm you want to subscribe, and then nothing else comes for 2 weeks. It's like, oh no. So frustrating.
It's a perfect opportunity for a sequence, and like you say, it's a great opportunity. They've just asked for you to tell them more about you and your brand and your products and your services, and you've kind of missed it if you haven't.
Well, indeed, and the whole thing is, if we are, we know the ad platforms are losing the ability to target and bring us customers as well because of all these big macro level privacy changes that we're dealing with, Google Sandbox and all the rest of it. So we need to nurture and hold on to that data we've been given by the customer, because that basically can't be taken away from us. It's being given to us, not to a third party, not to someone. It's been given to us. It's our opportunity to turn that into a lifelong customer. So it's what everybody should be massively investing in their email marketing right now, because it's such an important flip side to all the privacy changes and the impacts rather of all the privacy changes.
Maybe the backstory to that visit is you've already paid for a PPC click. You've already put some content out on social that's taken time to curate and post and draw an audience in, and they haven't become a customer, but they have, put their toe in the water and said, tantalize me a bit more, and you've not capitalized on that opportunity, even though you've spent the money to get them there. So yeah, I think we can talk about that being wasted until we're both blue in the face, I think, but I'm glad we're on the same page for the pet peeves. I guess we talked earlier, one of the things I really love with a podcast is actionable takeaways. So people who are working in the e-commerce space can go away and implement those changes. We've talked about a couple there. The welcome email, if they sign up for an account, you call that newsletter sign up. It might be an account sign up. That's a great opportunity. There's different ways that I categorize emails related to an e-commerce store. So you have the transactional emails. They're related to a purchase, obviously. You've got your marketing emails. That's when people sign up for the newsletter. Your remarketing, to try and bring them back with content, with products, sales, that sort of thing. And then you've got your kind of remarketing content, which is slightly different, like you said, about the abandoned cart remarketing. And again, that's another very basic opportunity to get in front of people, because that is done with a specific purpose related to the sale. So it does bypass that GDPR consent type requirement, in that they have left something in the basket and you've then got the opportunity to try and bring them back. But if we just in that email talk about the product that they've left, have we left something on the table by not also sharing other things at the bottom of their email, or does that border on a compliance issue?
That is the beauty of the greyness of GDPR right there. And I would interpret GDPR that you can certainly put some other customers bought this type personalized recommendations in there.
Sure.
I think you can definitely give them a voucher code if you want to at that point. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you should. So I think you can put some content in there, but you have to be mindful of the fact it's a transactional email. But that's really a question for a privacy specialist and not me, Adam.
Well, with all of these different email types, transactional, marketing and remarketing, like your inbox gets super crowded. And I think a lot of retailers have moved to also sending you a text message. I think I was at a chat or a talk with .digital a couple of weeks ago, and they said a text is likely to get a 95% open rate I think 95% within 10 seconds, and 98% within 10 minutes. Is something stupid like that. So when we get a text, we're very much more used to responding to that quickly. But it feels like when you order, sometimes you get a bombardment of transactional emails. You might get a bombardment of text. What we kind of need to think about is how you stand out in that crowd. You've got an inbox full of stuff. What are the subject lines, especially with the more marketing focused emails, that are gonna help people or help retailers get that click, get that open, and get that visit to the website? So I guess it really starts with the subject line, and crafting like a subject line. My favorite in subject lines tends to be like the curiosity or the urgency that gets me to click. Like, if I've engaged with a brand, perhaps I've come with a specific pain point or a problem, and they go like, here's the secret to solving problem X, click here, then that that because they've come back to me with what was initially my problem and a solution, it helps me get from a negative present where I am into a positive future of having this problem solved. Do you have any magic or formulations for subject lines that work on you, or you think work for retailers best?
I think, especially with e-commerce, you have to be very mindful of what you're trying to achieve with the subject line, which is that you are trying to drive sales 90% of the time. Even if it's a content-based email, you're trying to get to the point where someone's going to buy more. So that means you need to work out how your subject line is going to get the right person to open the email who's going to take action on the content in the email. So I like to think of it from that perspective first of all. It's not about getting opens, it's about getting the right people to open the email. And the right people to open the email are the people who are going to take notice of the content that's in that email, which also comes into segmentation as well, but let's stick to subject lines for now. So I think there's lots you can test. I think there's no does it for everybody. I think your example of someone at your stage of the buying journey is likely to have questions about the product, so let's send them an email that answers the questions, and we'll make the subject line really obvious that we are answering questions. What do our customers most ask us about this product, or whatever it might be. I think subject lines are incredibly fascinating, and we generally don't spend enough time on them. So I think I'm going around in circles here, Adam. I'm aware of that with my answer, but it's such a hard one to do because I don't think there is any perfect structure for a subject line. You'll see, analysis that shows long subject lines work well versus short subject lines. I don't think a long subject line is going to work when you launch your sale. I think sale now on is probably the best thing you could possibly put.
What about some little fundamentals? What about use of emojis in a subject line? Fan or not a fan?
Fan. I like to put
Fan.
an emoji in a subject line.
Okay.
I'm always
Any
surprised how
favourites?
few. Oh, so many favorite emojis. I love my most favorite emoji is the one I didn't realize existed. When you find an emoji by accident, I should use that for bullet points. That's my favorite emojis. Obviously the Christmas ones do get overused every year.
Definitely. And the
Yeah,
sunshine, as soon as it's like flip flops or something else that's been marketed.
yeah. I think emojis are worth using, worth testing because they fundamentally make it stand out. But I would, depending on the audience I was marketing to, I may well do a bit of split testing on that one to try and create a company rule on do we emoji, do we not emoji. Same about short and long can be one to look at. Questions can be quite good. But you sounded like you
What
had a
about
list
sort
you
of
wanted to
social
test.
proof? Do you have social proof? Sort of customers see why X number of customers love this product. Do you think that's because we're all conditioned a bit more to that kind of social push now, and it's like, oh, everybody else is doing it, so do you think that has a draw if you have that in the subject line?
I think one of the best emails you can possibly send is one which is about your customers' top picks from the current season. So like
Okay.
five-star products from our latest range. So yes, I totally agree that social proof can be a good subject line.
And have you ever? I get some emails sometimes that's like they're asking you a question in the subject. So what if you could achieve X in one click, or something like that? Do you think like speaking in more of a sort of conversation format is good in subject lines, or are you really just trying to hammer across a point?
I think it can be. Again, it depends on what the content of the email is and what
Okay.
reflects to it. So if you're launching your new season, I'd be pretty damn obvious with the subject line, new season now available, get it first, or something like that. Whereas if it was kind of mid-season and we had a range that was really spot on for a key influencer, maybe I'd do a subject line which was something like, want to know how XYZ puts her style together, and then it's an email about how to put the style together. So I think it depends on the content that's in the email, and I think the most important thing is to make sure you're matching the two of those things together, the content and the subject line.
Okay, great. And moving on to content, then, like value added content, you spoke about it a minute ago, where you can talk about other things other than the sale. Like a lot of the emails that you'll get, especially e-commerce ones, are focused on the product, focused on the discount or the sale or the new drop or whatever it might be. But like I'm quite often a fan with a newsletter. The ones I look forward to most have like curated other content for me, like educational resources or engaging stories. It might be like tips, tutorials, how-tos, insights that are also blended with perhaps products that fit in with what they're talking about. Like, do you put much value on that additional type of content in the standard newsletter format? Someone signed up for a marketing email. Do we just push products, or do we push a range of content types that might engage with different people that would increase that click through or that engagement of that email?
If we're sticking purely to newsletters and ignoring the
Yep.
automated content,
Yep.
I would definitely be sending content-based messages. So kind of content first emails as well as sales first emails. It all depends on the seasonality of the business. So you're probably not in the last week of November going to be sending some content heavy ones. Highly unlikely for most brands. If you're a jewelry or a floristry business, you are probably not sending them in February either. But you probably will be at other times of the year. So you've got to pick when the good times to send them. I think there's definitely a place for total content base with little bit of product involved. All the stats forever have shown that if you give people that kind of content, their overall spend value will go up. It may be at one email that performs really badly on an ROI front, or on an income front, but overall it will pay back for you. But that can be very hard to convince the boss of. I've been there. It's really tough. But then I think there is also the space, as you're saying, for having elements of content in sales focused emails, whether it's as simple as the example I was saying earlier about an email which is the top 5-star rated products, where you put the customer testimonial in there alongside the products. It looks more like a newsy thing than it looks like a salesy thing. Or whether it's a 5 recipes people make with our matcha tea powder or something. It's still, it's possibly going too far towards the content side of things, but there's definitely options for having that type of content in every email, and I would definitely put some social proof in every single email as well.
I mean, like I said with the flip-flops, if you had a summer foot guide, how to make your feet look fabulous in the summer, and then you also have flip-flops, it's kind of like you're giving value and also then trying to push a product at the same time. And I think if it's of interest, like certainly for me, industry insights are great, or tips or tutorials. And then if there's a product that allows me to enhance what they're saying I can do or achieve, or get me there quicker or save me time, then that's a perfect time to push the product at the same time, because you've almost created the need for it by offering that content. Like you said, recipe, make this fabulous recipe, but if you use this ingredient or this part of our product or whatever to achieve it.
Well, and it's one of those places where the collection of first-party data can really pay off. So I did a customer survey, which is loosely first-party data collection, many moons ago for a cottage holiday company based in Cornwall, which is surrounded by beaches. But the entire team worked in Cornwall, so none of us had ever sent an email about beaches to our customers, which is absolute madness in retrospect. But in this survey, we said, why do you choose to come to Cornwall on holiday? And the biggest words, the most frequently used words in all these answers were beaches and relaxation. And we'd never talked about either of those things in our email newsletters. So we started talking about them across everything. So what my point is, if you know through first-party data what your customers' why is, why they choose to buy your product, how they're using your product, then you know that sending out that they're not all turning your matcha powder into matcha tea. They're actually putting it in brownies and things. So why not send them some recipes? Because if they're making brownies and they're making tea, they're going to be buying more powder. If you know that they want their they wear your flip-flops because they go, they're fashionable best flip-flops that they wear to work and all the rest of it. How to make their feet look good for summer is going to be really up their street. So this is where the kind of like the less data-driven part, as in putting it back into the CRM of a first-party data collection, can really start to pay off too.
In those newsletter emails, maybe someone's not a customer already. So are we still trying to like build trust at that point? Are we sharing customer success stories, case studies? I think you mentioned like the 5 things that our customers are buying. Are we going a step further and sharing the success or the story that our customers have at that point as well? Or are we leaving that after the click?
I think we include that in the newsletter, because even if someone has bought before, they may still respond well to those kind of social proof, those kind of reassurance, trust building messages. So definitely, I think if you are a big business, then segmenting your newsletters between inquirers and people who've purchased is a very good idea. And starting to see how you can, sculpt your overall campaign, across the months to convert more of the inquirers whilst getting more repeat purchases from the buyers, because the content does or should be different for what you send those people. One of them needs inspiration, one of them needs help, probably.
Perfect. We're just going to move on to like sending times. So like timing is massively important. I'll come in on a Monday morning, and if that's the time between kind of Sunday night and Monday morning, you've sent me some sort of marketing email, it is immediately going in the can. So I think it doesn't even matter if it's one of the ones that I enjoy reading. I'm not in that mode. I might, if you're very lucky, if you're one of the few that I would curate or save for later, I might do that. But 9 times out of 10, it's just a straight can item. So I think that the time that you choose to send this is important. One thing that I didn't think about, and just until I was doing the research for this, but also segmenting your audience by time zone. If you're selling internationally, what might be Thursday morning over here might very well be Wednesday night over there. So I think there's 2 parts to that, isn't it? It plays into what's the most effective time, but having an element of segmentation into that will also have a bearing. So we did a campaign, it's probably about 6 years ago now, where we experimented with the best time for emails, marketing emails with e-commerce stores. We found Thursday afternoons to be a fantastic time, around sort of 2-3 o'clock. Again, if you think about the structure of a lot of people's weeks, Monday we're very into it. Friday we've already left the office at just after breakfast, but mentally we're there we've left mentally, but we're there physically for the rest of the day. Have you had any success with times, days, and any segmentation around that topic?
I find on the time zone thing, I think you're absolutely spot on. Capturing time zone is so important to get things out at the right time. Most email systems will now enable you to pick send at time zone, so you shouldn't need to do segmentation. You should be able to do that fairly straightforwardly within the system.
Great.
And normally 90% of everyone I've seen, if you don't have a time zone, they just send at the time you said for your normal time zone. So you don't even need to worry too much about, accidentally personalizing Dear Gap or whatever it might be, as we all know, can be a bit of a nightmare. It's super simple, personalization of send timing. I think every brand should test days of the week, and times of the day, but I think this is one of the areas where AI is really going to help us out, because different people look at their emails at different times. and different people use email in different times. And I know there's some case studies of brands who've somehow managed to work out they've got a work email and a personal email for someone, and sending the messages, different messages to work and to home at the right times increases spend. So I think if AI or machine learning can identify, the time this person's most likely to open, and you can send some campaigns that you're willing to go out over a 7-day period. This doesn't work for must end tomorrow or any of that kind of stuff, but the more general things, send them out and have the option to pick send at best time for each recipient. That is something that I think a couple of email service providers have got it in their tech provision. More should have that. That should be high on the list, because I know time of day and day of week really gets marketers het up, and there is no perfect answer. There's because it varies from week to week. The week where there's an election, it's all completely different to a week where where presidential elections happen. Because we do politics on the brain, Chloe, very boring. Where there's like a
You've
big
talked about
England match.
GDPR as well, so don't
Yeah,
worry.
it's like when there's a big England match in your chosen sport. If that's happening on a Thursday afternoon, then Thursday afternoon is not a good time to send the email, unless
Sure.
your customer base aren't interested in that. But then they're probably still affected by it. So I think timing of when an email gets delivered to people, I that's one of those areas I really hope AI is going to deliver for us. I think it's more important for brands to identify, to give some practical advice rather than to keep praying for the tech to solve the problem. I think the most important thing is to identify the times when it's a terrible idea to send. Like
That would be better, wouldn't it, actually?
Yeah, I know from my list, for just my audience are e-commerce brands. They're not consumers. I know my website traffic tanks on the weekends, so I don't bother sending emails on the weekends. Fairly simple. I know from trying it that sending an email out on a Friday is a waste of time. Nobody responds. So we don't send emails on a Friday. The rest of the week, I'm a lot more confused about, endlessly trying to work out some patterns from it. But we've identified 3 days we do not send anything out on. And
that's a great way to come from like the reverse, isn't it? Almost reverse engineer it. So when are we not going to send because it has a poor success rate?
Yeah, I think that's an absolute great thing for any brand to do. And then if you've got the data, you can start to try and hone in on the really good times. But hopefully the tech stacks will sort of solve that for us soon.
Because the working week one is interesting, because we have a very 24/7 economy and working economy now. So it's like you say, it's massively different for different people, and hopefully AI helps with that. But still, in a 9-to-5 environment, there are times where a distraction is welcome, and there are times when one is very not welcome. So yeah, I think playing those margins will have an effect as well.
Yeah, I often think like for a brand, an 11 a.m. send so you catch the office lunch break is
You have lunch at 11 a.m.?
No, but like I remember when I did work in offices back a long time ago, a lot of us would like lunch would be at 12 a lot of the time. For some, it obviously goes back to 1 o'clock. So I guess more like the 11:30 sense. You're there in the inbox when that person gets lunch. Or, when they're getting a bit distracted at 11:30, thinking, "Oh, I can't go for lunch yet. It'll be way too early. I'll just have a quick look on the phone and see what's come in." So that's definitely a good one to test. But then time zones come into that, obviously, of course, as well.
And there's the one that hits you on the sofa in the evening. That's very opportunistic for me. You can probably catch me with something that I'm not in market for, and I'll have a look at that time, because I'm doing the dual screen thing. I'm watching something I'm not really watching, and somebody sends something over that's caught my attention for 2 seconds and distracted me. So again, that one for me is it may work brand to brand, it may not.
It is for a lot of people. And I think if you look at a lot of brands, when people buy during the day, not when people buy day to day, there's usually we've just put the kids to bed, 8 o'clock, purchasing spike. A lot of businesses do a lot of good business in the evenings. So sending something that's very focused, very transactional. You're not going to send something at that point which is explore our full range. It's
No.
going to be
Clickbait me.
yeah, we've got a 24-hour sale on these 5 things or something,
Yeah.
to get people in there in that distracted moment. And I would imagine, and this, listeners, this comes with no knowledge at all. This is merely a hypothesis, this one. I would imagine if you are targeting mums of school-age children, especially primary school-age children, or fathers of those kids too, hitting the 9 o'clock or the 8:45, just done the kids drop off,
Mm-hmm.
getting back to the office, or getting home back to the home office, making a cup of coffee before the working
Mm-hmm.
day starts. I bet there's an opportunity there.
Okay. Yeah, and it could be the first sort of click of the day, that really, couldn't it?
Yeah. Or the first fun
Um,
click of the day after you've done all the school admin anyway.
I think everyone out there wants to like improve open rates, click throughs. Those are some of the like key metrics to track and analyze. As well as subscribe, unsubscribes, and things like that. Some of the less obvious ones might be like a list growth rate. So the rate in which your email list is growing, factoring in new subscribers and unsubscribes. So it's almost like the accumulative. It might like help assess the financial effectiveness of the campaign, and guide you on like future marketing investments. Is there anything else that like you feel would be one of those unsung heroes of tracking and analyzing these campaigns?
My favourite was always, and I would love to be able to track this now, but my business doesn't sell anything online, so we can't track this now. But my favourite was always total income attributable to an email divided by the number of people the email was delivered to, not sent to, but actually delivered to, divided by 1,000 to turn it into a usable number. So income per 1,000 delivered, which then it kind of evens out all your segmentation. These people did get it, these people didn't get it. It evens out all of that, and it very quickly helps you see which campaigns actually drove you good income as a
That's
percentage
a
of
great one. It's
your
almost like a
business.
revenue per email, but you've segmented that for yourself even further.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes if you're good at the segmented send, you might send, maybe you sell garden and home products, and you've got people who only buy garden, so you just send the garden people an email. Was that worth doing? Well, the only way to do it is to divide by the number of people you sent it to. So
Sure.
I would definitely do that. I would also keep an eye on. You mentioned about the list growth.
Mm-hmm.
For a bigger business, so we're talking at least 50,000 on your email list before you bother doing this. But I would start
Mm-hmm.
tracking all those metrics by recency data. So,
Okay.
how's our inquirer list, the people who haven't bought yet, how's that growing or decreasing? How is the list of people who've bought in the last 12 months growing
Mm-hmm.
or decreasing? And then
Mm-hmm.
people who've bought 12 months before that, is that growing or decreasing? And see if they are continuing to perform in as good a way. Is the 0 to
What
12 month list still buying at the same rate as they used to?
what about the subscriber to customer rate? Like, so we are we converting subscribers into paying customers at some? But did you ever analyze that as well?
Never analysed that, but if you're splitting out your inquiry list separately, then you should be looking at that on the larger macro level, the whole company level anyway, which is the
Because if I'm
other.
that customer that I've dipped my toe in for the first time just to
Mhm.
get more information about the brand, if you've found that there's a increase in the percentage of people that have actually turned into customers from that, rather than those that just signed up for the newsletter and never became a customer, you know you could have certain drives on getting people to sign up for accounts, or getting people to marketing to them with different promotional types.
So at that point, I think you're probably ending up tracking overall customer behavior, straying into the realms of customer lifetime value rather than purely email, because they're being hit by so many other messages. So when I've done a lot of work on welcome campaigns, so post email sign up pre-purchase campaigns for businesses. We measured the results. We looked at open rates, click rates, what messages were getting the best engagement, and optimized accordingly. But our real metric was 3 months later, how many of these had bought and how we could increase that number and that percentage. I think it was exactly what you're talking about.
Sure.
But that was, we knew as we were doing that everything else in the business was staying the same. We weren't making major changes to Google ads or Facebook ads or anything else we were doing. So, but that's unlikely to be the case. This was a very small business where we could just let everything else mellow, rather than really pushing it. So I think I would definitely be looking at that, but I'd be looking at that as a whole company, a whole marketing mix piece, not just an email piece. So
are you saying that's because you don't know what's got them to convert in the end?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you're doing your job right, then that segment should be being fed into your ad platforms, so they're getting ads relevant to their status in your mix, and they may be getting, you may be doing offline marketing campaigns to them, you may be doing other things. So it's how that whole mix of experience leads to them buying rather than just the email. Obviously, if you're only doing email, then yeah, you can tie it purely to email. But you should be, as a business, looking at how many inquiries do we manage to convert into. So, and of course, then you've got the whole promos thing. What promos are you running, and how much impact is that having? Which is not necessarily down to the channel; it might be down to the message.
I think we did something on episode 6 related to promos, in that discounts of less than 10% aren't really enticing for anybody. So we put together like a promotional cheat sheet of some of the rules to stick to. So if you didn't listen to that, go back. I think it was episode 5. And download that free ebook. That should help with curating those promotional messages. You talked luckily quite quickly about GDPR, and if someone's going to talk about GDPR, I don't think any podcast would be complete without the mention of AI. So AI and machine learning in email, there's going to be tons of things that's going to help optimize. We've already touched on a few things there with, learning about the customer, when they're best likely to open emails and things like that. What other uses do you think are going to come first? Let's try and put them in an order. What's going to come first in AI, in email marketing, or if it hasn't already?
I think what's already there is a lot of generative AI stuff. Let us rewrite your subject line for you. Let us create your content for you, which on all generative AI, I don't think it's the final answer. I think it's more a case of it can get you past white page paralysis. You're like, oh God, what are we going to put? It can help you get past that. It can help you work those things out. So I think the generative side is handy, but you shouldn't rely on it completely. Certainly not at the moment. I think the bit I most want is the send this at the right time to the right person, the individual bit I talked about earlier. And then the third thing I think it's really delivering on already, which maybe isn't part of the actual ESP tech stack, it might be part of someone else's tech stack that's integrating, but is bringing in personalized recommendations of other products into that email. The clever personalization engines now have the point where they can predict what a first-time customer will want to buy. So you can do this for the whole of your database, no matter how much they have or haven't bought. And that is, to be able to just have some automatically generated products in almost every email that are relevant, that are in stock, without anyone having to resize the imagery and set it up and check the links. Just marketing gold, quite frankly.
So that might be based on my KYC or data that are first-party data. Hey.
Exactly. Well, if you've got a decent platform, then you should be able to pull all of that together to really power those recommendations. So I think that is the other part that I think AI is very well set up to help us with right now.
There were two that caught my eye. One was sentiment analysis, like being able to gauge the customer's feedback and engagement levels, like analyzing responses to previous campaigns and things like that. I think it's almost quite difficult to do manually, but being able to do that with AI based on that customer feedback, engagement, how many times they click the email, what they went on to do. If that can enhance and pull all of that into one readable analysis, I think that would be very powerful.
Yeah, I
Have you
think
had any thoughts on that?
that's a very good point. I think if we can have AI identifying segments we otherwise couldn't be able to identify,
Mm-hmm.
so this person's been clicking a lot and they haven't yet bought. This
Mm-hmm.
would probably be a time to do that. And then you could turn that into auto-generating segments that get automation campaigns out the back of it. I think that
Yep.
is, a cool area where
A
the AI
good
should
friend
be
of
able to
mine
help
works
us.
in the car industry, and like they're using AI at the moment to identify the makes and models of cars that are being marketed the most and having the most success on certain days of the week, times of the year, months of the year, or whatever, and that are getting those levels of engagement or feedback from dealers that are buying these cars. So again, knowing that you're going to get the most premium price for a blue Ford Focus on a Thursday afternoon is going to help you push that product at the right time to the right audience. I think that's super powerful.
Love that example.
The other one, which I guess I'm a bit of a churner with email newsletters, and predicting when I'm gonna unsubscribe is probably quite easy, I would say, in a sense. So having that churn prediction and prevention, I think, with AI could be really, really interesting. Like, decreased engagement levels. So you've gone from someone who was previously engaged and you're now sort of waning a little bit. You're clicking fewer links to the website. Is that a sign that you're getting closer to going, right, unsubscribe, and had enough of this brand, and the opportunity for the brand to just pivot slightly and maybe come at you from a different angle? What do you think about that type of AI use?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we have to do with email is not just continue sending to every single possible email address we could. It's yes, it's very cheap, each additional email we send out, but it's not good for our carbon footprint, because these things do take up carbon. As weird and electronic as they seem, they are, costing energy. They are also costing us some level of cash as well, and they're potentially annoying somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point at which you go, I'm so fed up of deleting this, I'm going to spam it, which then also affects your deliverability. So I think, every AI or no AI, every brand should be archiving, I suppose, emails at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point at which you have to go, this person is there's no point in me emailing this person anymore, whatever that might be for your brand. And that should probably be preceded by some kind of reactivation campaign, which could be, like you say, a subject twist. It
Yeah.
could be as simple as do you still want to hear from us? Click here if yes, click here to unsubscribe if no, or ignore us and we will stop mailing you. So I think if AI can help us do that more accurately, then
Mm.
that has to be a good thing, rather than us trying to create the rules.
It's like re-engaging like an at-risk group of customers, isn't it? Like they're at risk of going, is that person actually worth? You just said there, I wonder how many marketers are brave enough to send that list. Do you want to hear from us anymore? Yes or no? Because they're thinking, well, it's another number to market to. But actually, it's just a thing costing you money at that stage, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's that infinitesimal chance you might be able to sell to them at some point in the future. And it's like, actually, if you were sending them a catalogue, a physical mailing catalogue that cost you, I don't know, £2, £3, £4 per item to mail, by
Yeah.
the time you take all the costs into account, yeah, you wouldn't be sending that person that. And emails should go deeper into your list than your catalogue mailings go. But you have to actually go, hold on a minute, maybe we shouldn't bother having this data anymore.
It's slightly off topic, but it's like paying to go to the cinema and then not being, decisive enough to walk out halfway through because the film's rubbish. You're like, I'm not gonna
paid. I'm
stick to the end.
Yeah, it's really bad, but I'm going to carry on watching it. It's weird.
Exactly.
I don't know whether it's one of those things that happen when you hit 40, but I've discovered I'm now capable of stopping reading a paperback book if I don't like it, which taken me 40 years to get to that point. And I've actually, now you say it, I've got to the films, not the cinema point, but the watching a film on the telly and going, actually, no, rather than feeling I have to complete it.
But maybe because there's so many to choose from on like a Netflix, if you just been down to Blockbuster and got a DVD, I'm showing my age now, but if you've been down to Blockbuster and got a DVD, you probably would watch it to the end because you've gone all through that effort, right?
Yeah, definitely. Which I think that's one of the neurocognitive bias things that we're all programmed with, which is something around once you've made the decision, you have to see it through because you made that decision. I can't remember the name of the cognitive bias, but yeah, that's probably one of those playing as well. You put enough effort, I'm sticking to this. It's maybe awful. The house might be burning, but I'm watching the end of this DVD because I walked to get it. Yeah, totally get that. And it definitely applies to email marketing lists too.
Yeah, the confidence just to be able to go, okay, we've segmented an at-risk group here. They're costing us money. Let's see who wants to continue to be marketed at. Because actually, if they say yes, wow, you've got a golden opportunity to try and, put something under their nose that is going to attract them. If they say, no, don't market to me ever again, you've just saved, admittedly, it's not going to be a huge amount of email marketing, but it's something that you can use firepower for somewhere else.
Well, and you've saved that possible spam complaint, which is very well worth evading. It's like, to build on that point, because I work supplier side. We do campaigns where we end up legally giving each other cold email data. So you end up sending a welcome email to the cold email data. And whenever we do one, in massive letters across it is, if you don't want to hear from us again, click here, click the unsubscribe. Because, yes, legally these people have signed up to receive email from us. But if they don't want it, I want them to unsubscribe. I don't care if we get an unsubscribe rate of 10 or 20% from that. To be honest, it's usually more like 3 to 5. But that's fine. Go away. Click the unsubscribe button. And we should be a lot happier about, much more into getting unsubscribes these days with our email marketing. They're a good thing.
Well, an unsubscribe is a good place to finish, I think. I've been lucky enough to help contribute to this, but you've done an awesome job of curating 500 top tips for making your e-commerce business more profitable, which is an ebook you've got coming out, right?
Yeah, it's out now. It has been a mission, a big old mission, and it is quite the epic ebook. I'm so pleased with it. We've got it's to celebrate our podcast e-commerce master plan hitting episode 500, and it takes several hours to read the 500 tips that are in this ebook, because I've read them all as I was editing it and putting it all together. So we definitely couldn't do a podcast episode full of 500 tips. So we went for an ebook full of 500 tips as well. And it's all about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. And we have tiny tips from the likes of, like change your credit card provider to someone who gives you cash back, your business credit card. Really simple stuff, right the way through to full-on segmentation strategies that are pretty much a whole page all on their own in the ebook. It's amazing what people have sent in. And we've got stuff around marketing, ops, every aspect of e-commerce. It's a real treasure trove of ideas for making your business better. So yeah, and it's great to have you in there.
Well, that doesn't lead me on to this point, but you have crowdsourced this from some of the better people in the industry, myself excluded. But you've got people like the UK MD of BigCommerce, Mark Housen, there giving tips. So these are hugely knowledgeable people sharing what they think are the best insights for e-commerce. So how every retailer out there doesn't want a copy of this ebook, I don't know. So you've done an awesome job of creating it. We'll put some links in the show notes of how people can get to it.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Yeah. And how else can people reach out to you? What's the best kind of, way to get in touch?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find because I'm a UK LinkedIn top retail voice. That's the blue button, not the other one. It's the proper blue one. Still don't really understand how I got it, but very proud of it. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Chloe Thomas and you'll find me. And if you want to find the website stuff, ecommercemasterplan.com, and you'll find the ebook on there as well.
Amazing. So let's get out there. Let's improve that email quality. Feel free to share any experiences with us on the social channels as normal. And all the links will be in the show notes. Thank you.
Follow the Real eCommerce podcast and visit realagency.co.uk for more e-commerce content like this.